welcome to the Quiet Dog podcast. My name's Adam. For those of you that don't know me from Adam, I'm Adam. Just a little joke there. Always start with a joke. That's my motto, even if it's a shit one. I wanted to make a bit of a video about sobriety. I'm 4 years sober at the end of this month, and I made a video, I think, the second year I was sober, and I thought, yeah, I think now's a good time to check back in and excuse me. Now's a good time to check back in and just talk a little bit about my journey, I suppose, if I can use a slightly pretentious word. There's a lot of things about this that make me cringe because I'm aware that it can come across as preachy or like I'm trying to kind of flex a little bit and you know, oh, it's good. Oh, look at me. But I'm proud. I'm very proud to have gotten to this point. But I will also say it's not been a pony ride. Whoever finds this interesting, whoever wants to connect with this, I'm not trying to promote anything. I'm not trying to sell anything, any ideas, any type of religion, any specific. This is not like a how-to video of how to get sober. It's literally just, this is what happened, this is what I did, and this is where I'm at now. So, come one, come all. Let's get aboard the train of not drinking anymore. So, yeah, this is it. I stopped drinking 4 years ago. I got to a point where I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts. I would fall on and off the wagon. I would go dry for like months on end sometimes. I would feel great, and then eventually something would happen in my head. I would have a bad day, I suppose, and similar thoughts, like familiar thoughts, would start creeping in, like just kind of ruminating over stupid things, and it would just get to a point where it became unbearable. And because I wasn't drinking and I was exercising and looking after myself, the thought that kind of took precedent and kind of dominated my behavior was, well, what's the point in not drinking if you're always going to feel like this? What's the fucking point? And so I just started drinking again, and slowly but surely, I'd come back to the same place of feeling shit, feeling worthless, feeling just, yeah, very low. And it would be worse than the time before. And I suppose the catalyst for me wanting to do something different, try something different, was that firstly I split up with, a relationship ended. I moved back home with my mum and stepdad, and then I got my own place. And so when I was in this period of, I stopped drinking for a period of the breakup, the separation, the moving out. It kind of helped me to realize that the relationship wasn't right because I'd taken drink out of the equation, right? So that helped just kind of make that decision and go, okay, I know this is not just kind of drink related. This is to do with the relationship. So let's just end that, which obviously is very painful, but I know that it was the right decision. Eventually I came to know that it was the right decision, and then moved back home, still sober, still not drinking. And then I kind of got back to that point again where I was like, well, I'm in a good place, I'll just have a few drinks, I'll treat myself. And then eventually it was like, oh, it just kind of got really out of hand. I would start drinking and not know when I was going to stop. It became exhausting trying to hide it from my mum and stepdad. And with me, it was also like, I'd do other drugs as well. It would sort of open up it was all up for grabs. If I was having a drink, it was all up for grabs. So there was the added paranoia of that. The hangovers became worse. And so there's a lot of shame, I guess, attached to that. And a lot of it, I could be very sociable when I was having a drink, but also not really need anyone to have a drink. I would just kind of hide away in my room, listen to music, have a great time, have a great old time. But the hangovers and the sort of shame afterwards and the depression afterwards was just got really, really bad. And then I got my own place. So then it was like, okay, I've got my own place now. I'm living on my own. Hadn't lived alone before. I'd always have like a housemate or I've been with a partner. Then it was the okay, this could potentially be pretty dangerous. Like I'd have a drink during the week and then wake up in the morning, drive to work, still half cut. And because it was a bit of a further drive, not that doing that in any distance is good, but it's much worse if you have to drive along a motorway, stuff like that. Stuff like just carrying on drinking in the morning over the weekend, just to kind of stave off the hangover. And then you're trying to stave off the existential dread, the shame, the depression, the kind of just hitting that low. You're just trying to fend off all of that shit. Then eventually you kind of level out a bit, and then by the time you've done that, it's the weekend again. And that's always been my relationship with alcohol, in a way. To a greater or lesser extent, it can be masked by certain things. Like, I think your age masks a lot of it, because when you're in your 20s, which is, when I did a lot of drinking and drugs and all that kind of stuff, it's masked by it's just kind of normal in certain circles. It's like, it's kind of half expected, really. And so, but underneath all of that, there were moments where I'm like, I'm doing this it's to fend off a sort of anxiety, a sort of not feeling comfortable in my own skin, not wanting to think about certain things, just to be sociable. And other times it's just out of sheer boredom. It's just bored. I'm restless and bored, and I'm fed up of feeling bored. It's just something to do. So yeah, that had always kind of been the thing. And then so that all comes to the forefront when you live alone, and the sort of danger of having suicidal thoughts. And there were a few moments where actually it felt like that could happen. Like I'd be driving and there'd be a tight bend around a country lane and like a cliff on the other end, and just sort of thinking about turning. That sounds really dramatic, but there was a very vivid moment where that felt there was a real impulse there to do that. So that, coupled with having no one there to kind of go, mate, this is not good. You are not in a good place now. You need to do something about this. No one else was going to pick up on that. I knew it sort of had to come from me. So yeah, after some really, really, really bad hangovers, so in February 2019, 2019, I think it was. Yeah, 4 years ago, I got to a point where I was like, I have a problem. This is a proper problem now. I need to do something about it. So I'd never really considered myself an alcoholic. I still don't consider myself an alcoholic, and I'll kind of get into the reasons of that in a bit. This word alcoholic and the stigma that's attached to it, and the kind of the images that it conjures up. For me, I just thought, I've got a binge drinking problem. I'm depressed. There's stuff going on in my life that's making me depressed. So I have a problem with drink. I'm binge drinking, and I need help with it. So I quite naively Googled binge drinking support groups, and there wasn't any. I couldn't find any. So I was like, right, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll try that. I don't know if I'm qualified to be an alcoholic. That was my thought. I don't feel like I'm yeah, I don't know if I constitute being able to go to a meeting. So I just phoned this number, and a guy called Graham answered, and I kind of told him where I was at, and I, I just sort of offloaded onto him. And he was very nice, and I can't really remember all the ins and outs of the conversation, but the one thing that he said to me that changed everything was, firstly, binge drinking is a form of alcoholism. That was the first thing he said. And I was like, all right, well, I didn't really know that, or I didn't put those two things together. I saw them as very separate things. Like, you got binge drinking, which everybody does. Everybody binge drinks. Who the fuck doesn't binge drink? That's a standard kind of Friday night out for some people. And it's just so heavily ingrained into culture that it's like, what is there's nothing abnormal or unhealthy about that, surely. In my case, it was. I'm talking about me now. This is not, this is not a projection onto anybody else. But for me, that was a bit of a like turning of the key, an unlocking of something. Okay. And then the second thing was, the only thing required of you to attend an AA meeting is the desire to stop drinking. And that was all I needed to hear. That was a relief. It was okay, right, there's something I can do now, and it doesn't involve just sheer fucking willpower, which is what I've been trying to get by on for so long, with just the will to stop, the will to kind of stop this self-destructive behavior. Something bigger needs to happen. I need to be sort of plugged into something. I need someone to just say to me, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's kind of how my mind works. I need steps. So I went to a few meetings, and then I got a sponsor. And it worked. It worked for me. Now, I'm aware that the word alcoholic, I did have, and I still do have, some mixed feelings about that word and whether it applies to me or not. What it helped me do is to take some accountability and ownership of where I'm at, or where I was at. And I'm still at that place with my relationship with drink. I've come too far now. At this point, it's like I've come too far to even consider. Why would I? Why would I consider picking up a drink? I have dreams still. I have dreams where I get pissed. They're very weird. There's a lot of mixed emotions in those. Some dreams I'm like, oh, I've had a drink, but it's fine. It's just one drink. This night is just a write-off, and I just have a complete blowout. It's kind of fun. It's like you get the experience of having a blowout and none of the repercussions. Just an odd feeling of like not entirely being in reality. It's odd. It's an odd feeling. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, the term alcoholic. It kind of, when you share in an AA meeting, and you're encouraged to share, but no one's kind of putting a gun to your head, but you're encouraged to say, my name's Adam and I'm an alcoholic. And it for me, it sort of symbolizes, the word alcoholic just kind of translates as, I have a really fucked up relationship with alcohol, and I'm here to fix it. I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I'm here as someone who's just fucking hit rock bottom and is egoless at this point. There's no judgment in those rooms. There's no judgment. There's no, they say don't cross share, and what cross sharing means is you don't give somebody else advice. You kind of you share your point of view from your experience, and that's it. And everybody else does the same thing. And within that, there's a lot of power and there's a lot of connection. There's a huge amount of connection, and it's a relief. It's because not everyone in there is what you would think an alcoholic to look like or behave like. A lot of people there are just normal people who have a very troubled lives, very troubled outlooks and baggage. And so going through the steps helped me hugely. And again, this, I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone, because I look back and I go, yes, that got me through. That really got me over the hump of connecting with something bigger than me, plugging myself into a community of people who make me accountable. I got a sponsor. I met up with him for weekly meetings, going through the steps. You know, and that's tough. That's challenging. It's exposing. It puts you in an extremely vulnerable position. You sat in this guy's house. You don't know him. And the same when you go to meetings with people. You're sharing very personal stuff, but there's also something really beautiful about that. Again, I know that sounds pretentious and a bit hokey, but there is, because you don't get that with your friends or family. You can't say stuff that you say in those rooms to your friends and family, because there's so much attached to it. There's you know, you don't want to worry people. You don't want to you don't want people to think differently of you. But in there's just there's a massive shortcut to everything that's true and everything that's real, and with none of the padding around it. You're just speaking from a very truthful and vulnerable place. And that's one of the biggest things I've taken from AA. The power of being vulnerable, the power of being honest with yourself as well as others. Being honest about where you are emotionally, mentally, whatever, spiritually. And the other thing is, again, this is going to sound like I don't consider myself religious. I do now consider myself spiritual, but I'm also very aware of the redundancy of labels. But one of the things that I've taken from AA is my connection to God and what I consider God to mean for me. That again, so God, alcoholic, those words were a massive turn off for me initially, and it sounds like a cult. But another thing that stuck out for me was a guy about my age, very troubled guy, very, very troubled. You could just see he was contorted with whatever it was that was going on with him. He was in a really dark place. And he said, I don't care if this is a cult. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I think that just says a lot about the place you need to where your rock bottom is very different from where somebody else's rock bottom might be. But there's a saying that religion is for people who fear hell, spirituality is for people who've been there. And that chimed with me, because it was like, there has to be something else. This cannot just be my experience. I know this is not just my experience, because this room full of like 30, 40 strangers, they all share this similar thing. And they all share this sort of release, this kind of connection to there's something else. And so when I hear the word God, whenever it gets sort of thrown about, but what it translates to for me is that everything that is not the ego, everything that is not tied to this shape of like an identity of who I think I am. There's something else. There's the awareness that sees all of that. And that for me is what God is. So that helps. Meditation helps. I really got into meditation a lot. I really got into yoga and different movement practices and being in tune with my body, and not just kind of going to the gym and just hammering out bicep curls and just kind of tiring myself out on a treadmill. You know, really tuning into movement and what's going on in the body, because everything can be so cerebral, and I can get very caught up in thoughts. I still do. You know, I'm 4 years being sober, and I still have these, I don't know what you want to call them, like just feeling shit, getting caught up in thoughts and getting in my own way, overthinking things. That, you know, that's been another realization, is that back when I was trying to get sober, the reason I'd keep coming off the wagon is that I'd be like, oh well, life's just shit anyway, so I might as well drink. Like, as soon as I embraced that, like, the highs and lows are always going to be there. They're always going to be there. But you kind of get to decide how low the lows are and how high the highs are. And drink really was just, yeah, in the moment it numbs everything, but really it just kind of, the lows are always going to come. They're always going to come. And with alcohol in the system, those lows, I mean, who knows where they end? And you know, so now it's just like a kind of just kind of like this, whereas before it was like that. Now it's like this. Sometimes it goes like that, sometimes it goes like that, but mostly it's just like this. That's the best way I can sum it up. What being sober is like. Like, you don't lose any of the, you get to keep all of the shitness, is what I'm trying to say. You get to keep all of that, but you also, my relationships have improved with my friends and my family. Romantically, that's still up for grabs. That's, if I'm being completely honest, there's still every now and again I do think, would being single be much easier if there was drink involved? But I'm coming around. I mean, you know, I've tried a lot of things, dating apps and all that kind of stuff, and I've just come to the acceptance that those things are not for me. Those things are not built for people generally who don't model their social lives around going to a bar, having a few drinks, no matter how casually or whatever. It's just not. I'm in there's a very small minority of people who don't drink in the dating world. But what I am coming around to, and this is a big thing that has changed very recently, is discovering things like sober raves. They're a thing. Sober raves are a thing. Not only that, there's a lot of beautiful people that go to them, and they're all very, like, my experience of rooms full of sober people is people looking very somber in the AA rooms, obviously. And there is some laughter in the AA rooms. Don't get me wrong. There's release and humor and lightness. But you know, I've not been to an AA meeting for a good while, and I'm very thankful that it's there if I need it. Every now and again, I do go back to it, and I do check in with my sponsor. But thankfully as well, I do have very open lines of communication with my friends and family about this kind of stuff, about being sober and all that. That's what AA has given me. It's made me take ownership of that and be transparent about it. But yeah, the energy and the sort of, there's nothing. Yeah, there's kind of this sort of celebratory thing of, what am I trying to say? I suppose what I'm trying to say is that the social aspect of being sober can seem like it's non-existent, really. Where are all the people who just want to go out and dance and have a fucking blowout, the exact same as you would if you were going out and getting smashed, all that kind of stuff that I used to do. Why can I not do that still? Because I still love that. I love dancing. I love it. I love music. I like laughing with other people, just not like getting smashed out of my face laughing. So yeah, discovered that there are events, and not only that, they seem to be growing in number. And I went to one recently, and as I say, the energy there, very open and just people just kind of looking at you and saying hello, and with an openness, not with a sort of, if you go to a bar where everyone's getting smashed, there's a sort of spiky kind of energy. Everyone's a little bit guarded, to an extent. Everyone has their own pockets of people, but here it's like everyone's there, and not only that, everyone is there to dance. Not kind of waiting to get smashed so that they can feel less inhibited when they're dancing and less self-conscious. Like, there's none of that. The music's there to dance to, and that's what everybody does. And people like talk to each other, and again, it sounds very corny. There's a part of me which is sort of catching myself saying this, and there may be people watching this going, "This guy's a fucking wank. What an absolute wank." Because it's very corny, because there's nothing to lean back on. There's nothing to go, I just did that because I was pissed, or I'm just here because I want to get pissed and just fucking let go. When you're doing that and there's no alcohol involved, yeah, from the outside looking in, it does look kind of cringy, but it's not, because I was there and it was a fucking great laugh. So that's improving. The events that are there are obviously in high demand, because not only that, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that people go there who aren't labeling themselves as alcoholics. You don't have to be an alcoholic to go there, and that's why I use this term alcoholic very sort of loosely now, because why can I not just be someone who just decided to stop drinking? The drink just doesn't do it for me anymore. That kind of stuff does. Going to social events like that does it for me. Going on like spiritual retreats and doing ayahuasca, that does it for me. If you want to know a bit more about ayahuasca, there's a video where I talk a bit more about my ayahuasca retreat. That definitely deepened some understanding for me about where I fit into this whole existence thing. That puts things in perspective. So I suppose in retrospect, life is much simpler now. It's not necessarily, I don't know if I would say it's easier. It just seems more worthwhile, because the things I end up doing, they come from a place of, I want to do that just because I'm either curious about it, or I'm drawn to it, or it kind of, it chimes in with something in me wants to do this thing. Whether it's a creative thing or whatever, there's nothing clouding there's nothing muddying the waters. It's just all, let's just try this and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I feel like yeah, if you can get through that initial, depending on where you are in terms of, if you are watching this and you're like, I think I'm done with booze, but I don't know how to get over the hump, like, you may well just kind of decide to stop overnight, and that'll be that. But it may take you a few goes. But I really do believe that it's all worth it in the long run, because you get to experience life on life's terms, and that's a huge thing that I've taken from AA, is that you let go of the need to control everything, and you just experience life on life's terms, because everything is much bigger than you. And all alcohol is it's just a way of controlling everything. It's a way of suppressing things or making yourself feel a certain way. And maybe you can regulate that. Maybe you're one of the lucky people who can just kind of take it or leave it. But if you're not, then I would say just stick with it and talk to people. Because that's the mistake I made for a long time, is just trying to kind of just control it on my own. And I think the sooner you open up to people about, not even necessarily just about drink, but just about your own mental health, where you are, the more vulnerable you can make yourself, the more people will kind of close in on you and help you. Like Anthony Hopkins says, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. That's so yeah, maybe I'll just end it there. Maybe I'll round things off by just saying that. And I'll continue to take it one day at a time, not get too cocky, not get too proud, not congratulate or berate myself too much about anything. And I hope this has helped you, whoever you are, wherever you're watching this. I hope it's helped you. And if you have any questions or just any comments, feel free to leave one below. But I'll leave it there. Thanks, guys, and take care. Speak soon. Bye.